Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Rome with Romy, where I talk about life, love, and culture. Today's case study is going to be on the serious side and is going to be involving a lot of sensitive topics such as domestic violence, violence against women, parental abduction, and parental alienation. If these topics are triggering for you, I would suggest that you click off of this video right now. The reason why I decided to cover this story is because parental abduction and parental alienation is a very real thing, especially in Korea. There have been several cases where children have been abducted or kidnapped by their Korean parent, and the foreign parent has never been able to get in contact with the child again.
We begin tonight with a father begging for help. He says he waved goodbye to his son in 2019 as he went on vacation to Korea with his mom, and that was the last time he saw his son in person.
C'est quasiment par miracle qu'on a réussi à obtenir un procès pour enlèvement et séquestration de mineurs. Au départ, le procureur ne voulait pas poursuivre l'affaire, parce qu'en Corée, les parents sont rarement accusés d'enlèvement de mineurs.
With the influx of foreigners coming into Korea every year and the rate of interracial marriages happening, this is something that definitely needs to be discussed. Another reason why I wanted to cover this story is because Courtney herself has asked for help. She would like for her case to be publicized and for the world to know what is currently going on in Korea and how a lot of parents have had their rights stripped away from them. And unfortunately, although Korea is part of the Hague Convention concerning the international child abduction, they do not always comply with the regulations. And so this is a very serious topic, guys, and I want to make sure that I do it justice. I really hope that you all can learn and be educated by Courtney's story. These case studies, again, are not meant to scare you, but just to make you aware of what can happen if you don't know your rights in a foreign country, especially in a country such as Korea. Now let's get into the story. Courtney is a young woman from the United States of America. She met her soon-to-be ex-husband while he was on a trip in the United States. Now, we do not know her husband's name, and we do not know what he looks like because Korea has some strong defamation laws. I will be giving him an alias name, which is Hong Gil-dong, and that is literally the equivalent of John Doe. And for those of you, if you're an international viewer, John Doe is basically the name you give to someone if you do not know their legal name. Now, Courtney met Gil-dong in the United States while he was on a trip. Courtney does have a history of dating Korean men because her ex-husband was Korean as well.
I had met him in the US. I had gone to a coin karaoke. These guys approached me outside and said, "Oh, do you want to karaoke with us?" Since it was my birthday, I decided to karaoke with them. A few months to a half a year later, after us officially dating and knowing each other for a year, we ended up getting married. At the beginning of our relationship, he was very charismatic. The first time he met the children, he bought them, toys and brought them to them. We would go on vacations together. We would go to Oido, Incheon, things like that together. So he seemed like he really cared about the children and me. If I'm going to get married again, this seems like a person that I can trust and I really care about. I'll give it a shot.
What had happened is my ex-husband is Korean as well. We had met in the US. We were together about 5 years, and my 2 daughters are from him. At the time, I had worked for an airline, so I would often fly the girls over here for like a week visit and bring them home. Well, at this time, I had been switching to work at home, debating if I was going to move over here and work. And we both knew we needed some time to save for a month or two financially. With the whole co-parenting situation and inflation, we had agreed to send our daughters over here for a month and a half for them to visit grandparents. But when he came over here, he was supposed to go on vacation to visit his parents and, bring the girls back home. But what had happened is he returned without them. I actually, same as a lot of the other parents you've interviewed, had gone to, I believe, I don't remember the name, it is for abducted children. I went to, the highest level of government you can go to in the US, asked them what I should do. They said, contact the grandparents, if they won't return your daughters, then we're going to have to file a hate convention. But the thing is they told me right off the bat with that Korea is one of the most hardest countries, to get children returned, and that basically, even if they got a court order, asking for these children to be returned, that more than likely nobody would enforce it. I kind of looked around, I was like, oh, this wouldn't be a bad place to live. And their dad, after everything that he had kind of done with that, had agreed, oh, if you want to live there and it's cheaper, and, better for the kids, I'm okay with you guys staying there. So it's kind of how we just kind of ended up here. It wasn't necessarily that I wasn't debating moving here. It's just kind of happened, abruptly. He is my current husband. I usually just refer to him as the other party now with all of it just being a legal matter. We had met in the US as well. It was more of, I had been traveling for my birthday. I really like corn karaoke. And as I'm sure living in New York, they do have things like that, but in my state, it's not very common. I had traveled, to the next state that was close by to enjoy corn karaoke for my birthday. And I had this group of guys, when I went to leave, approach me and say, hey, would you like to karaoke with us for, like an hour? I could tell that maybe one of them was trying to maybe asked for my number or something, but it was my birthday. And I thought, why not? That might have been, a flaw of mine working for, the travel industry and being more extroverted at the time. I didn't actually, exchange numbers with him. His friend had given him my number and he reached out a few months later. And then when I did travel over to Korea, what had happened is, the girls were visiting their grandparents. I had gone on dates with him for a couple of days, traveled around Seoul. And when I ended up coming back due to the girls, that's when we had officially started dating and started a relationship.
As you saw in the footage, they both met while they were in the United States. He was there for a visit and they met in the next day over and they were both enjoying coin karaoke. Noraebang is a big thing in Korea. It is huge, y'all. So this is not surprising to me. The thing that stood out to me in this story is that the guy was sussing her out from the beginning. And for me, it's the fact that his friend took her number and gave it to him, and he only contacted her a few months later. That's a red flag. The reason why I'm saying that this is a red flag is because he waited a few months to get back to her. That just lets me know that he wasn't really that interested. And probably what happened, again, this is my speculation, is that he was probably dealing with other women and his roster went dry. He just reached out to her because he didn't have any other prospects. I'm just being honest, y'all. When you meet a man, and again, this is generally speaking, I don't need men to come in my comments talking about, I messaged a girl months later and I was still interested. I will say this. If a man is truly interested, you will know from the jump. This man seemed like he wasn't that interested. One, probably because they lived in two different countries. Two, probably because he had other engagements going on. And three, I am going to speculate that he had other prospects and those prospects went dry. And so he decided to reach out to her. It's a numbers game for them, ladies. It's a numbers game for them. It is a numbers game. Now, we have another red flag that showed up. Grazy TV asked Courtney during her interview, were there any red flags that you identified while you were dating him? And this is what she mentioned.
But looking at the situation before, I would say the biggest one that I had was boundary setting. It wasn't that he was doing anything that would come off aggressive. He was actually the complete opposite of that. He was very kind, outgoing. He would say, very kind words to me. He would never do anything that seemed aggressive at all. But when I was setting these boundaries of, you can't just tell me that you want to meet me tonight and drive an hour and be halfway to my house and tell me that you're going to show up and you want to hang out. I have children, I have a work schedule. And I told him that it made me feel like he wasn't respecting my personal space, that my apartment was mine. That's my safe haven. That's for me. And he also wasn't, respecting the fact that that's basically blocking someone into a corner and saying like, hey, I'm already halfway there. Like, are you going to open the door? And then guilt tripping them into the fact that once you arrive, you already took all that effort when they never asked for that. And they let you know ahead of time that they want you to let them know when you're coming over to hang out.
A man not respecting your boundaries may seem a little minor. However, this was a big red flag I noticed. If someone doesn't respect your boundaries, that means that they do not respect you. And the fact that Gil-dong would still drive to see her, knowing that she's a single mother and that she has 2 children to take care of, and her time wasn't as important as his time, and what she was doing was not as important as what he wanted to do, that's a big red flag. The next thing that I'm going to say is going to be a bit controversial, but I have to be honest. I think he purposely sought her out because she's a single mom. And generally speaking, Korean men do not date single mothers, especially young Korean men. That is not something that is normalized in Korean culture. A lot of men in Korea do not like the responsibility of taking care of someone else's child. And that is something that I noticed with this story, and it leads me to believe that he purposely sought her out for a specific reason, and we're going to get into that.
Unregistered newborns left inside the baby box, a place where parents can surrender their babies anonymously. Majority of those who drop off their babies are single mothers facing the social stigmas of having a child out of wedlock, underage, or through rape.
Another red flag. There's a lot of red flags in this story, but another red flag, and unfortunately Courtney didn't notice until it was too late, is that he wanted to rush into the marriage.
To be fully honest, I think a lot of it was, and this is just my perspective on it, people don't move out of their parents' house until they're, going to get married. They're almost 30 years old here. It's just not something that they see as financially affordable, or maybe they just think it's a big leap to do. I think, to be honest, the relationship seemed good at first, but I do feel like maybe the marriage was rushed for housing reasons or government funding reasons. Maybe he wanted to move out of his parents' house and become independent, but he didn't really want to do that on his own terms. And I think it was more so, in my opinion, looking back on it now, it was playing house to him. He knew that I had my own children, but he knew that the marriage could be dissolved at any time. Versus, once I became pregnant, it became more concrete. There was more strings. They couldn't just be cut.
It sounds to me like they didn't spend enough time getting to know each other. And it sounds to me, and she even said that, he probably most likely wanted to move out of his parents' house and wanted to be independent, but had to find a way to do it. It's quite possible that he just wanted to get out of the house. Who knows what his reason was? But the point of the matter is that he rushed into getting married to her, knowing that, again, she's a single mother, so she has responsibilities. And he would have to take care of those responsibilities. But he still rushed into the marriage. Courtney and Gildong, they get married. And they are living as one big happy blended family. Now, everything looked great on paper and to the outside. Until she got pregnant.
So it was a lot of, subtly walking across boundaries, but trying to make it look like for the sake of the relationship and caring about me. Things like that, just really subtle things. He didn't ever do anything aggressive until after I'd gotten pregnant. And, my mom had passed away and he knew I didn't have any family to kind of go back to.
I really noticed his attitude started to shift a lot after I got pregnant. And then it got to the point where anything that I didn't agree with him on, he would say, I'm going to kick you out of the house. I'm going to kick you and the kids out of the house.
Fuck you, just go out.
I'm not doing anything right now.
Just go out, I don't want to see you.
You're going to lose your visa. I'm going to make a false police report against you saying, you hit me or something. And he would call the police sometimes just saying, oh, am I legally allowed to kick her out of the house with no reason? And they said no. So he would make a reason, and he would call them trying to cause some kind of problem. It was when I was 32 weeks pregnant. So he came home, throwing divorce papers in front of me. I'll consider this later, but I need you to calm down. Right now I have the girls in the room with me. They don't need to see this. He started to keep pushing the paper on me and, yelling in my face. The girls are behind me on the bed. So I ended up locking the bedroom door and, going about what I was doing. There was about a 25 minute video of him banging on the door, screaming in Korean, I'm going to kill you.
아, 연아, 하지마. 죽여버릴 거야, 너. 놀라고.
Stop! I'm really going to kill you. I'm sorry. I'm going to make you, meet your mother.
A research conducted by the National Human Rights Commission of Korea found that more than 40% of foreign-born wives reported incidents of domestic violence. Types of abuse that foreign brides suffered were verbal abuse, which was at 81%, health-related abuse, which was at 41%, physical abuse, which was at 38%, financial abuse, 33%, sexual abuse, 28%, forced to cut ties with motherland, 27%, and restrictions on freedom, which was 26%. In Courtney's case, her husband started abusing her once she became fully dependent on him. And at the time, she also lost her mother. She has no more ties to the U.S. because remember, she moved to Korea. So mind you, she's pregnant, does not have a job, does not have income, has 2 children to feed. And her husband knows this and he starts to abuse her because he found his victim. He knew that she was going to be solely dependent on him. And he knew that she didn't have a way of getting out of this situation, or he presumed anyways. And that the laws in the country would work in his favor and not in hers because he knows what country he lives in. And so y'all really got to be careful. This is very, very serious because it happens more than you think it does. And the reason why it goes underreported is because of strong defamation laws. Even though they have laws that are there to protect women, they do not enforce them as much as they should. And so this becomes very problematic. As a foreign woman, you do not have as many rights. And they do not see you the same as they would a Korean person. This becomes very problematic in these types of situations, because then that's when you can clearly see that there is a difference between you and a Korean national. While he was abusing her, he would call the police to antagonize her and ask if he was legally able to kick her out of the house. Because remember, she doesn't have a job. She doesn't own the house.
It's just excuse. Then why you keep like? 아 진짜 나 너무 짜증나. 어? Just no. 적당히 하라고. Just no. You're gonna break the door, stop. You don't need anything in here. There's nothing in here you need right now. It's not. You just want to bother me and pushing me. Stop.
Her name is probably not on the lease. So she is literally at his mercy, and he knows that. And he used it against her. And that's a sign of an abuser. He was threatening to kill her. He was threatening to take everything away from her, including her life, while she was pregnant with his first child.
I have to give you anti-contraction medicines for the next 3 days or so that he's not born early. I was, not far enough along to have the baby yet. I'm in there for a day and a half, and that's when they start telling me how expensive these medications are. And I said, I don't have that kind of money. And then I get scared because you can't leave the hospital if you don't have the money to pay. And the nurses contacted him for, the whole day. He told them and me, that's not my problem. I'm not giving a cent to you and the baby. I don't care if you're stuck in there. That's not.
So now the abuse ramps up, and he starts to physically abuse her. And he starts to hit her, slap her, kick her in front of her. Mind you, this is in front of her children, 2 little girls, seeing their mother get abused. And she does not have any way out of it because she is helpless.
He'd shove her against the wall and choke her, saying he wished she'd just die. Even though the signs were clear, no one helped, not even her mother-in-law, who you'd think would step in, but she just looked the other way.
I knocked on her door. I said, I need to talk to you. Your son keeps doing this. She already knew. When she picked her grandson up, there was a mark on my neck, and she basically said, did you do anything to make him do it? Well, that's not like him. Did you do anything to make him do it? And I remember, just sitting at their table like this that night, trying to cry but not show them, because I was afraid, I'm with these people. What is their family like if he thinks this is normal? What if they don't let me leave the house with the baby?
On May 1st, things got worse. He threatened to accuse her of child abuse, provoked her while recording, and even yanked her collar as she held their son, almost making her fall.
You're not taking my son. Look at this. I'm not hurting you. Stop. Get off of my stuff. Don't touch me.
This is a photo that he took the day that he kept falsely calling the police, telling them that I was trying to, run away with our son, which I do have, a message from the teacher stating, she always takes her son with her to drop her daughters off to school every day with the yomucha, the stroller, and to pick them up as well. Because I really couldn't rely on him to watch the baby even for 10 minutes while I did so, because I would come back and the baby would, be crying in the crib, and he would be doing anything but taking care of the baby. I could make a bottle before I left, and he would just not feed it to him, or he would be vacuuming or anything to avoid having to actually take care of the baby while I was gone, even though I asked for just 5 or 10 minutes while I dropped the kids off. But this day earlier in the morning, he had falsely called the police because I was heading out the door with the girls to drop them to school, and he called the police at that time. Then he did it later again in the day. So you can see he's pulling on me here. I'm just trying to go out the door and take a walk and get away from the situation because he keeps trying to start a fight or keeps trying to say he's going to call and make false allegations. And at this point, I'm just afraid, if I'm in the house with him and he makes a false allegation and they come, they're going to believe him over me like they've done before. And he actually sent this to me saying that he was going to use this with his lawyer and saying, look at how bad you look, you look like the problem, trying to spin it back on me. And I gave it to my lawyer, and my lawyer actually said, why would he send that to you? Did you have it before that? And I said, no, he sent it to me. And he said, well, that actually makes him look bad because you can clearly tell you're a bit distraught and he's pulling on you and you're trying to remove yourself from the situation. My son's crying. And this is, what was happening before the in front of the elevator and staircase incident where I defended myself and slapped him on that one occasion was he was sticking his tongue out. He was smiling, not Joker smile, but seriously, he was enjoying this way too much. He was sticking his tongue out and facing the recording towards me and saying, the police are coming, I'm making a false report against you. You're never going to be able to leave the house. So finally, I, after being pulled on when I tried to run down the steps from the back of my shirt, kind of like this, except the back, while I was holding our son, and then being, blocked from the staircase, blocked from the elevator, blocked while I'm waiting on the elevator, he kept, turning the camera towards me and smiling and smirking and sticking his tongue out. And then he would record the video facing towards me or facing towards himself when I defended myself. And I have the video before that all happened of him, blocking me, but I can't seem to find it. I have the video that I gave to my lawyer of him doing it earlier in the morning with the kids too, when I just was taking, him to drop the kids off. But yeah, this is what I had to deal with for 2 days straight anytime I tried to leave the apartment. So when he finally did go to work, I went to the police station, or not on this day, sorry. So yeah, and he got his restraining order and tried to get the vacant notice for me to get kicked out around this time in the video you see here. And I told the police he's not living here, he's not lived here for a month and a half. He willingly left. And then I had a restraining order as well. He's not here, why do I have to vacate when he's staying at his mom's? And they said, well, his legal address is here. And I said, yes, but he's staying at his mom's and I don't have another place to go, so you're agreeing to make me homeless just for the sake of keeping peace with him? And now tell me, if he's really a victim, why would a victim actively go somewhere they hadn't been in a month and a half? Keep ringing the doorbell, which this is only one video, but he did it for over like 30 minutes all the way until past midnight, 30 minutes plus of ringing the doorbell, trying to get me to come out and open the door. To me, that right there just proves, who has the power dynamic in the situation and who's really the victim. But I'll play it here for you guys. Okay, it's done there. I'll listen again. Okay, at one point you can tell he's agitated and he just keeps ringing it because I didn't reply and I didn't answer. So that's why I'm pretty scared. It's done. I'll wait.
Eventually, Courtney decides to file a police report, but she said that it was difficult for her because there were so many steps for her to take.
I do know that I was told months later when I finally reported the most recent altercation in another city that there was one police officer in particular who had, really, really cared enough to call and check on me. And me being a foreigner, I wasn't aware that that was a police officer calling because it wasn't, an official number, and checking in every month. But no one did a home visit despite the fact that I hadn't replied to this wellness check. And then even with my cases going on now with recently reporting my father-in-law for trying, to physically assault me, as well as, reporting back in April what had happened with my husband physically assaulting me, they don't really do wellness checks. They'll send you a text and they'll say, hey, this is the police. We're just doing our, routine check. We just have to have you reply that you're okay. But even in the situations where I've never replied to those messages, I've never had anyone come out and check my address. I've never had any mail from the police asking if I'm okay. Any calls following up that. It's just the system isn't set up to actually make sure that these people are okay after this and not continuously going through more abuse.
And they made it very difficult for her to file the police report. One, you need a translator. Two, she felt like they didn't have any empathy for her and that the process was just very, very inconvenient. This man would also antagonize her and start fights with her so he could record her getting angry at him as a response of him abusing her in order to make her look crazy. This man was sick, y'all. He was sick. He is sick. And to be honest with you all, I believe that he plotted on her. He wanted to have a baby. And once he got his son, and once he knew it was a son, it was wraps. Because to me, it seemed like his whole agenda was getting a baby from her. Rushed marriage, rushed into living together, rushed into parenthood, because remember, he's the stepfather of her 2 children from a previous marriage. And so he knew that eventually he was going to take her son away from her.
They wrapped their arms around him and he just started shaking and, pretending to cry about me hitting him and acting like I had been, the abusive partner. He basically said, I have everything I need now to get a divorce. You're not going to have the baby for too long, but watch the baby for the day. After I went to work, I went to the police station. I said, I really want to go to a shelter. I don't feel safe in my home. The police officer involved, I don't remember his name, but he brought 2 family violence counselors into the police station. I had gone there with just, my son alone. The 2 ladies come, we sit on a sofa just in, one of those talking rooms. At the time, I was kind of struggling with holding the baby and everything. So the other counselor had offered, to take my son off my hands and just hold him for me. Next thing I know, I look over and, she's going out the door and I had this eerie feeling, but I didn't really know what had happened until I walked out from talking with the other counselor. She had handed my son over to my mother-in-law. My husband was there and she starts moving my stuff out of the stroller elevator and darting to the elevator to leave. He cannot go with them. I said this, between 5 to 7 times. I said, if he goes with them, they're not going to return him. I have this bad feeling. And the officer, I just look over at him and he's just kind of sitting there like listening to the whole conversation, not doing anything. My husband, is blocking me from reaching out for the baby. And finally, I run out of options. So, I'm looking at my mother-in-law saying, please don't do this, please don't do this. And, I got down on the ground and I literally begged for them not to take my son. And my mother-in-law finally did get out on the elevator. But that day when I got home, I noticed all my husband's clothes were gone. 90% of the baby stuff was gone. The police said, there's nothing we can do. It's not illegal in Korea. The other parent can take their child somewhere else. And they told me all the same thing. They said, you need a lawyer. That's the only way in Korea, you can get your child back if they're taken by the other parent, is to get a lawyer and to do it through the law.
She feels like being a foreigner really messed up how the police handled her case. When she reported the abuse, they often brushed her off, asking why she was even filing complaints and telling her not to bother. They were unprofessional, even laughing about her translator being too old, and they ignored her repeated requests to extend a restraining order, which ended up getting her kicked out of her own house.
So this man and his mama showed up like goons to the police station after an incident. Because of course they're not going to believe a foreigner. They have to have everyone's statement. And unfortunately, even though he abused her and she already had a police report prior, it didn't matter. They still called him and his mama to the police station to find out what their statement was. I'm not shocked at all that they took the side of the mother-in-law and her ex. In Korea, it is extremely, extremely, extremely difficult to go against a Korean. The way that their laws are set up, it's for the protection of their citizens, which is right because every country should be able to protect their citizens. However, this becomes an issue when their citizens are the perpetrators. So if someone has done a wrongdoing, it is very hard for you as a foreigner to go against them unless you have some type of maybe Korean family members or friends that can help you out. The legal system is very difficult for you to navigate as a foreigner, and also is going to always protect their citizens first. Look, I'm just keeping it real and I'm giving my opinions. This is based on what I have seen and what I have experienced. You will always be a second-class citizen over there. And unfortunately, Courtney, remember, she didn't have enough experience in Korea to know this. And so by the time she found out, it's way too late.
We are seeing a lot of people, requesting reform with the law in regards to, whether or not Korea decides to show, the victims' faces, or not the victims, my apologies, the perpetrators' faces. In these cases, often the victims' faces are shown. However, the perpetrators' faces, due to privacy reasons, are not. People have been talking about how they feel that this is an injustice towards the victims. This is why criminals, even in minor cases as well, where it might have been a dispute or such, why people are so okay doing these things, such as abuse, assault, robbery, anything. Why this crime rate continues to escalate, especially in the recent years post-COVID, is mostly due to the fact people feel that there's no reform on showing the perpetrator's face.
They will always put the interests of their citizens first, no matter what the situation is. Even if their citizen is in the wrong, even if their citizen has been found to be abusive, especially if it's a man. This man not only abused her, they have reports of her filing the abuse. They have pictures and documentation of her being abused. And yet that child was still put in the protective care of the parents because the parents are Korean. And also another reason, and she mentioned it too, and I do believe that as well, I agree with her on that, is that it would be hard for her as a foreigner to go up against his family. And his family, we don't know if they are in a powerful position. We don't know if they are financially powerful. We know nothing about them. But they have enough resources to make it very difficult for the police officers and the social workers and the counselors involved if it does not go in their favor. And this is why the counselors were so quick to snatch the baby away from Courtney, because they knew that the mother, whoever she was, the mother of the goon, the mama goon, that's what we gonna call her, because for every nefarious, abusive man, there is a goon mother. There is a male-identified mama right behind him, raising him to be a monster. So she was the one who probably planned this whole thing out for him to get his baby back because it's the son. He treated her as less than a human being because he doesn't see her as a human being. She was just an egg donor to him. She was just a woman that he could use to have a baby. And whatever reason he wanted to have the baby, who knows? And so now Courtney does not have her child. Her son is taken away from her. And we're going to see the reactions of law enforcement and how challenging it has been for her to get her child back.
Every part of reporting, I was kind of met with backlash, I felt. It almost made me as a victim in the situation to feel, guilty or second guessing myself. I've heard this a lot from other foreigners as well, or just women as well. You'll call the police and they'll be like, oh, okay, so you want to file this report. Are you sure it was that big of a deal? And then you'll call like a helpline that's supposed to be there to help you, like the Danuri hotline, which they are amazing for translation. They're great. But a lot of the time it'll be like, oh, do you want marital counseling? At least for married couples. Oh, do you want this family resource to help rebuild your family? And then, when you go to the police, I've had police sit there and tell me, please don't file another report for, abuse that has happened to you before, even though it'll help me, build my case in court to show that this is repetitive. They're like, we want to go home. We don't want to bother with that. I'm like, it's okay. I'll write this report. I'll leave it on your desk. You can handle it tomorrow. Oh, why do you guys keep doing this? Why do you keep filing these reports? Or I've had, police officers come to the house before and I tried to explain the abuse and they're just like, don't cry in front of me. Like they didn't want to see it. They'll ask things very bluntly in the way that almost makes you have to relive what you've gone through. That the police call in these situations to help you. The first thing she did, she pretended to be friendly. She pretended to offer these resources. And then after, my child was removed from the situation, it was every time in counseling for marital counseling, because that's all they had to offer. Don't ask about your son. Don't ask when he's going to be returned. Don't scare your husband further away by asking when you can see your son. And if I'd mentioned the abuse that occurred, they would just be very they would try to turn it on me and be like, oh, well, you did defend yourself, though. Maybe that hurt his feelings. Or they try to be like, oh, was it really a big deal? You could just tell that government-funded organization is there to prevent family violence. You felt a lot of victim shaming in that for even reporting it when they're supposed to be the ones there to help you.
The police officer, a female police officer, just called me telling me to take down my YouTube and TikTok, threatening me, telling me I'm not allowed to tell that I was abused or any of that. And that my husband was telling her that I have to take it down when I've not shared any photos or voice of my husband or anything. And she still said I'm not allowed to, and she said I'm not allowed to say my mother-in-law kidnapped my son. So I just recorded the phone call, and she said, I'm going to meet you eventually. I'm going to meet you about the case where I defended myself against my husband, the only time I've ever laid hands on him. And she basically was threatening me. Like, her tone was very threatening. I will be posting it on here. It came off in a threatening demeanor, like, where do you live? Eventually I'm going to meet you. And just being very demeaning. So I will be posting this. I don't know why this lady just called me in a rude manner. She's the police. She's supposed to help people. But I'll be posting that audio video in a few minutes after she calls me back.
지금 그러면은 어디 살아요, 매티스? 주소 어디예요?
이건 누구세요? 다시 얘기하세요.
폴리스. 어드레스 어디예요? 집 주소.
근데 왜 그거 필요해요?
그럼 내가 조회할 수 있어요.
네, 이거 유튜브도 할게요. 다시 말해주세요.
유튜브 올리지 마시라고요.
근데 왜 할 수 없어요?
그게 명예훼손이 될 수가 있어요.
근데 이름이도 없고 사진도 없고 제가 피해자이에요. 남편
피해자예요?
네.
알겠어. 내가 일단은 매티스 만나야 돼.
왜 왜?
사건이 접수돼서 명예훼손으로 접수가 됐어요.
어떤 접수? 다시 이미 얘기했어요. 영어 하는 선생님 다시 그냥
알겠어요.
네.
전화 줄게요.
I just called the U.S. Embassy. They said there's nothing they can do. I mean, I've been in contact with them via email and phone call for the last 4 months. So they're well aware, of the situation. It's just there's not really a lot we can do over here in Korea as, U.S. Embassy, U.S. citizen. The allegations towards my husband are still going on. As for the abuse cases, they were found that I'm a victim for, 2 of the cases, but they're still closing out those cases as well. So I'm just kind of sitting here waiting for, something to happen. It seems like when the police do something, it takes time for the court to do it. And when the court does something, it takes time for the police to do it.
Through the support of the public and with the help of her family, Courtney was finally able to get a lawyer. After months and months of reaching out to her ex to try to get access to her son, she ends up going to court.
I just kind of wanted to give an update on how court went today. So it didn't really go, how we were hoping that it would go. They did end up awarding temporary custody to my husband. I'm not really, sure why. Their statement was that he was afraid that we would argue or fight over it, and if a different choice was made later, he was afraid that handing back the baby would be hard. My husband did also make a couple comments, which I did feel kind of influenced it, saying that what if I went to the U.S. despite me not being able, to apply for a Korean passport or a U.S. passport without, being the only parental figure, which I am not. So I'm not really sure what that was about. The judge did kind of, smile and say, oh, that's not going to happen. Another thing was I was just really surprised with how, quick the process was. And on top of that, I was also kind of surprised with, it wasn't very structured as much as the U.S. courts would be. What I mean by that is, usually each party would have their own specific time to speak. The judge would call upon them and you wouldn't have to worry about interrupting the other party while talking. versus the judge just kind of asked us questions, and there were times my lawyer wanted to speak and he was afraid to interrupt because the other party or the other lawyer would be talking at the time. It wasn't where, you know, the other party, it was just really hard to know, you know, who was supposed to be speaking at what time, versus in the US it would be, you know, Your Honor, am I allowed to go ahead and speak? And you would check first. There's a lot of procedures and, you know, a proper way to do things. Here, they didn't really have that. The judge was also male. I don't know if that really makes a difference or not. You know, I'm not hating on him. He seemed really nice. There were times when, you know, the other party would make statements and the judge would kind of, you know, laugh it off and clarify that that was not to be worried about. I'm not really sure what the big choice on keeping the baby there was, especially, you know, because my child abuse claims against me had come back as not guilty, yet, you know, the other parties have not yet, you know, been finalized. So in Korea, it's usually guilty until proven innocent. So I feel like I would be the safer party to be with. But I don't think that the result was, you know, no one was aware of that result until after the court date, so that might be why there was some impact on that. Also, my husband did right before the court today submit a video of the picture where he was pulling on me. So that might have had something to do with it, where I was reacting like, don't touch me, don't touch me. And you guys, I was just very scared. But if you weren't someone in that situation who knew the daily things that I had gone through, you would probably thought I was overreacting, especially with other parties' calm demeanor. Anyway, I won't talk more on that because that's not what I want this video to be about. I want it to be kind of more about the custody part, because all the rest is, you know, behind me and below me at this point. I really don't want, you know, I'm not saying that I don't want to advocate for other people going through this, I absolutely do, but it's just something that when I think about it, I'd rather just not at this point, other than advocating for other people who are victims. I really want to have, you know, a bright outcome and a positive mindset for my future. So looking back on that, another thing was I think I was just really taken aback by, you know, the result. I remember just feeling both really sad and, you know, just really empty about it. I told myself going in that I wouldn't cry, you know, while I was there. I wouldn't show any anger. I wouldn't show any emotion. The reason being is I was just in a very like flight or fight reactive response most of the time towards the end of everything. And looking back at that, I realized that a lot through my life, I never really react to anything. In fact, I usually push down emotions. So seeing myself in that state honestly wasn't something I really favored anyway, or really like to see anyway. And I do think now that I've gotten out of that abusive situation, I do see myself, you know, presenting myself and who I want others to see me as is who I really am, and not just a reaction to someone provoking or hurting me. So I do feel a lot back to my old self in that sense of, I never used to be the type of person to let someone know if they bothered me, hurt me, or, you know, gave me any wrong feelings. And I do like that I'm back to that, where I can present myself, you know, and keep myself kind of closed in, where I know how to not show what's going on in my mind. Although I do admit, after everything was done and, you know, we got out and everyone left, I did end up crying a little bit while talking to my lawyer and double checking a couple things, which he was very understanding about, but it was just very hard. I just feel very, you know, sad and empty at the same time. But nobody worry, I am perfectly fine. I'm just trying to think of the next step from here.
He made it very, very hard for her to get visitation rights, but eventually the courts decided to grant her temporary visitation rights, and you're going to see how that's been going for her.
So I'm just kind of going to go, you know, and talk about, you know, in Korea what kind of entails when you're going through a divorce and you would go to like one of these visitation centers, and what it's like, if anyone's wondering, just in general, not any like specific things about my specific visitation center. And everything today, you know, was a blessing. It was a very good memory. It was a roller coaster, you know, obviously of emotions at first, but I'll get to that later. But it was a very good memory, and I am very thankful for it. So basically, you know, the lady or one of the teachers, child psychiatrist, or maybe they're just like a center teacher, I'm not quite sure. I don't quite remember. Anyway, I had, you know, gone into the center. She's very kind. She, you know, she comforted me at the end of everything and told me to like keep coming and that these things take time, and she was very sweet. I can tell she cares a lot about the children involved. So I am very thankful to have someone like that, you know, to go through these things with, I will say that. And I did make the mistake of wearing those like shorts that you wear in the winter with like a blazer or something. You wear like, not leggings, tights with them, and some boots or whatever, which I didn't think it really mattered that much as long as like, you know, I was comfortable. But she just kind of gave me like a look up and down a couple times and then was like, wear something more comfortable next time. But it was a very judgmental look. And I didn't think it was a big deal because in Korea, like, people wear like mini skirts all over the place, and I was covering everything. But I do realize it's cold outside, and like older people tend to do that. So that, of course, made my anxiety a bit up at first, getting like looked up and down like that right away and judged on my outfit. So that was like so at first. That part's fine. That's not, you know, relevant to anything. But then I got there early. I was like about 10-15 minutes early because my taxi ended up being early today. And so we sat together, and I was just waiting quietly, and she kept bringing up questions. And at first I kind of entertained the questions and I tried to be polite, but then some of them I just started getting to the point where I was like, we don't need to talk about this. And what I mean by that is like, it came off very condescending with some of the questions, like, oh, it must be really hard. Like, it'll be really hard to take care of 3 kids. Like, how do you even plan to take care of 3 kids? And that could be looked at as looking out and making me think about things. But it really came off as like, whenever I come up with an idea, like, oh, well, you know, there's babysitters now. He's going to be going to daycare in January by the other party's choice anyway. You know, like, I can work soon, you know, once court's over and I don't have to worry about getting fired to go to court. I'll be working and I'll be earning, you know, a really good salary. And I said, a lot of moms do that. I just started giving examples. And then it was more digging and digging of like, basically, I felt like she was trying to make me feel defeated, like as if raising, 3 kids is just not possible for a mom, when I do feel it's very possible, especially in Korea where daycare is not expensive as the US. I kind of just replied with, women all over the world do it all the time. Like 2 to 3 kids is pretty standard for other countries. It might not be here, I don't know, but like a lot of women handle having 2 or 3 kids and, raising them. It doesn't mean it's not hard, but that's like a parent's responsibility after they have the children. And I stated that, and it was like just more digging and digging on. It almost felt like she was trying to make me feel like I wasn't cut out for taking care of 3 kids at first. And that might not have been her intentions, but I just didn't like the way that the questions were phrased and the kind of sarcasm behind them that I felt, or the condescending condescending tone of the questions and the statements. So I finally was kind of just like, we don't have to talk about this. And then I kind of went on to mention how, if parents really, care about their kids, they'll make whatever situation they can work. And how, a lot of other countries do co-parenting, and how Chia and Yena's father, my daughter's father, while, the end of the marriage and after we had, divorce and we were co-parenting, I worked around whatever schedule he had for the kids' sake. Like if that meant working an evening till 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning and then going home, sleeping an hour and a half, 2 hours, waking up at 5 when they're dropped off to me, that's what I was doing. If that meant getting up at 2 a.m. to go into work at 4 a.m. and getting off by 12 so that they only had to be alone with the babysitter from like 9 o'clock in the morning when he left to go to work until like, 12, 12:30, 1 o'clock max in the afternoon, I did whatever schedule my kids needed. So we go into that conversation. And I felt like I was just getting defeated no matter what I stated. And I felt like there was a lot of like, kind of like judgment as like a single mother. And that's probably not what she was trying to do, but I just didn't like the conversation. So I politely tried to change it and be like, we don't have to do this. But other than that, the rest of the experience, although a roller coaster of emotions, was fine. And again, she might have not have meant it that way, but that's not the first thing I want to have this conversation when I'm already nervous to meet my son after so many months, but what else are we going to talk about? So then, we're sitting there, it's kind of quiet. She's like, maybe find some toys that he might like. And then all of a sudden I hear in the background the other teacher say, the baby's here. And she goes out of the door and she shuts it for a couple minutes, probably like getting the baby ready and everything. This time, his dad did have to be in the room together because it is the baby's first time and they didn't want, the baby to cry. Because he did cry once or twice with both looking towards me or looking towards the teacher as well. But while I'm waiting on that time where they're like getting my son ready to come in and visit, I just started automatically breaking down and crying. And it wasn't like a sad crying, it was like an overwhelmed, oh my gosh, it's been so long. I don't know how to feel like this. It felt unreal. The whole morning even going there felt like it wasn't real that I was really about to see him. And I kind of just started shaking, getting a bit of anxiety, like when your body kind of shakes a bit. So then they bring him in, and obviously he's not the same baby that I saw last time I saw him. He's grown up so much. And that was kind of a huge shock, even though I expected it. You don't expect how much their specific face is going to change. But he is the cutest, most gorgeous, most handsome, adorable baby ever. I have nothing else to say on that. It was good to see, that he's healthy, that he's okay. Because I've not seen photos of him for months and months and months. And I couldn't take my eyes off of him. Like I felt like I was scanning his face all over again as if it might be the last time I see him, because I don't know if these visits will continue or if, the other side is going to keep bringing, my son to the visits. You never know. I just always assumed that there could always be a worst case scenario. So I felt like the whole time, like the whole half of the beginning of the whole meeting, rather than trying to interact, I was letting the caregiver do most of the interacting, like the teacher, and I was just scanning his face over and over again in shock and trying to just stare at him because I knew I wasn't going to get a photo. I knew I wasn't going to get anything tangible to take home and remember today. So I just wanted to remember his face, if anything. So then like the teacher is kind of trying to bring toys to him, and he's just kind of like, turning around with big eyes like, oh, he looks a lot like me, I will say. I mean, he obviously looks like both parents, but I was like, oh well, he's definitely my son. So that was nice to see that there's some resemblance there, what I look like as a baby. But anyway, she's trying to interact with him, and I stayed pretty far away for a while because I was just so afraid. I could tell he didn't recognize me. It's been a while. And then after the first half hour, 25 minutes, I finally started getting closer and closer and trying to hand him toys and interact. I kept arching closer and closer to him. And I started to kind of pick up some little Poro toys and everything and hand them to him. But I didn't try to hold him this time or try to get too close. I was maybe a small distance away from him and he was sitting up and playing, but I really didn't want to scare him because he did cry a few times to the teacher as well as looking over and scanning the room and looking at me. But he did show curiosity, oh, who is that?
Courtney now has temporary visitation with her son, but it was after months of not seeing her son. Imagine you give birth to your child and now they don't even recognize you. That has to be so heartbreaking. And it's the fact that while she's visiting with a child, there has to be someone there with her as if she was the one who was an abuser. Because they're scared that she's going to be able to take the child out of the country. She's going to get her get back. That's what they're scared of. And it's very sad because you see the unfairness of how she's treated as if she's a criminal, yet the criminal is able to get away with so much. That must have been so infuriating for her to see. And the good thing, or the positive thing that came out of this, is that she does get to see her child. And also, the defamation lawsuit was thrown out. She was able to prove that she didn't dox him. She didn't show his face. She didn't say his name. And so, therefore, they decided to throw the defamation case away. So she got a win. She got a win. However, she is still going through this whole entire process of trying to see her baby while having the judicial system be against her.
Hi everybody, it's been a while to be on here. I just want to give you guys some updates on how everything's going in our lives right now, as for court and work and just general updates. So I am officially working. I do have to see if they're going to sign a contract for March and on, because I am contracted to fill in for a teacher that left from now until the end of February. But I do believe I will be signing that contract within this week, so that's some good news there. Basically, my visits with my son are on Mondays, and being that I have to start working in order to pay for life in general, rent, bills, my daughters, of course I have to work. I've been mentioning that to the court for quite some time, and it was hard to find a job that would have paid more than parental leave that would allow me to have Mondays off anyway. So I officially just told the court, I can't go to these visits on Monday because I've tried everything to find a job that is not working way late into the night, because I do have 2 daughters to care for, and the court does care that whatever job I have will fit a schedule to raise my son. Thus, I wouldn't be able to have a job getting off at 9-10 p.m. at night, and that wouldn't look good for custody. But I told them I need a job in the morning then, from a.m. until afternoon. And if I'm going to do that in order to pay for livelihood, look good for custody, as well as pay the child support that's due, because I do owe the other party child support until final custody is chosen, being that my son is currently there and living there and in need of finances from me, which is understandable. But I just stated simply that it's not fair to expect me to work and to pay those things if the other party is not willing to compromise on having weekend visits, being that most people during the court process would have already had weekend visits. So after that was stated, the center did try to talk with the other party and sit down and schedule a visit or see what would be available. They, in person that same day, declined to the visitation center right at the end of the visit and said that I would have to speak to their lawyer via my lawyer if I wanted to work that out. My lawyer has since then contacted the other party's lawyer and tried to schedule for weekend visits, but we're still waiting on a reply as far as I'm aware. As well as that, if you've been following my TikTok as well as my YouTube, which by the way, welcome back everyone from the US. If you are not aware, being that we still have the TikTok ban up in the air right now in the US, please go follow my YouTube channel. It's under the same thing, Courtney the Enthusiast. If you want to see updates on how this is going and keep in the loop there, or maybe the friends that you have living here who are married and going through similar issues to spread awareness to them, share my YouTube with them as well. Because even for some Americans here, if you created your TikTok while you were in the US, it will not work here, is what I've heard. I got lucky. I created my TikTok while I was in Korea, with my phone that I purchased in Korea. Well, yeah, since then. So it's not going to affect me. But just in case, and you want to keep continuing to follow the story and know what happens at the end of court, please go follow my YouTube channel. It's really helpful. So yes, the more people who follow it, the more people who share it, I do believe it gets it more out there for viewing, and then that can thus, get reporters to reach out. And it is very helpful. And I actually have had a couple of reporters reach out to me recently, writers, and being that we have a big vacation right now and I'm off from work for the next week, I'm going to take that time to carefully reply to each of them and see if we can get the story back out there more. If you are following my son's case, you would know that I recently got mail back from the prosecutor's office, or maybe it was the police station. I think it was only at police level. The defamation case against me for these videos has been found invalid due to the lack of evidence, meaning I have not ruined anyone's image or posted anyone's face or information online, thus it's lack of evidence and not able to be sued for. So luckily that was found not guilty. They kind of told me at the beginning that they had to investigate if they didn't really see any true claim of defamation due to not showing the name, the face, any identifiers in particular, like their height or their work or something where they live, something to identify them potentially. So that is definitely a relief there, because I was going to be very disappointed if just, from getting a simple complaint like that, when I've been very careful to not reveal identity and just to get this out there to warn others of the potential risks, that I was going to end up possibly getting these videos shut down, and then more people are going to end up going through this. So at least we don't have a huge setback like that. I do believe these videos are important to shed light on, discrimination here. I do feel like sometimes the courts and sometimes the police, don't handle our cases as foreigners seriously. So that's just a general update. Working has been going amazing. I love my new job.
This is not the only thing that this man did. Now, because he is the primary custodian of the son, he has asked her to pay child support. Y'all heard that. she has to pay child support for a child that was taken away from her.
I had my lawyer submit to the other party for moving visits to the weekend because I'm working. As well as that, I had went ahead and had my lawyer notify that I would have to pay the first child support for temporary custody that he has until the final choice is made on who will get to raise our son. That I would be paying that on the 14th of this month because I don't get my first check until the 14th, and I started around like end of last month. I don't believe there's been any replies to my lawyer about that, despite the other party not wanting to talk about visits with the center, which the court inspector acknowledged because she was there, I guess, looking through the visiting center window, one of those one-way viewing windows, and she noted that she did see that he rejected to speak with the center employees as well as myself about moving visitations, and that he said speak to my lawyer directly, meaning speak to his. My lawyer has since then done that a week or two ago. No replies. A week or two, maybe more than that ago, a month ago, basically. So yeah, this is where we're at this point. So yeah, I'm just kind of waiting to see how things go, and waiting on the court for that part to see about the visiting hours.
So now Courtney has to pay child support because he is the primary custodian of the child. In Korea, whoever has the primary and sole custody is the one who gets to request for child support. This man plotted on her, y'all. You can't tell me anything otherwise. This man plotted on her. And he got her right where he wanted her. Because now he got his son. Him and his raggedy mama got the son. And not only that, but he knows she's suffering, and that brings him joy. He loves it. He loves the fact that he can control when and where she gets to see their son. Because that's what a narcissist abuser does. They always do that. And not only that, but she's also paying for it. And she has 2 other mouths to feed. Make it make sense.
코트 인스펙터 하우스 비스트.
So I just wanted to talk for a second about why I've not been posting on here as much and kind of just update on some stuff. So pretty much they did the house visit, and the house visit went okay. There was an issue where my windows got a little bit flooded with water because the outsides weren't shutting how they were supposed to, and where the girls were visiting their grandparents for the holiday, and I had been out of the house for a little bit. I went to check it because while they were gone, I just kind of really had the blinds down a lot. Well, I had the blinds down so I didn't notice it, and water apparently was in the windowsill, and it kind of got a little bit of an issue there. So I did have a blanket covering near the window to kind of get that water problem fixed when she came in. But other than that, there was some laundry hanging out to dry. The kids' room wasn't as organized as it could have been. I had the toys were on the shelves, but they weren't all put pretty how I usually make it. I had washed the bed linens, but I hadn't laid them out on the bed yet. But you could tell that I'd washed them because I had the laundry bags and all that done. So it wasn't as beautiful and organized as it could have been, but I felt it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't dirty or anything. And I did explain the reason being is because I have the kids' playroom in the biggest room where there's a window and air can ventilate and they can have sunlight. And I told her I chose that room for them because it's the biggest one, but I'm thinking about moving my room in there where the baby would also sleep because we need more room for both our beds, and moving their room into the middle room where my room is currently because all my stuff's kind of crammed in there because it would be big enough for a playroom. On top of that, having their room for playing next to the window during the winter when the humidity level is really high, or the summer too, with it raining and snowing and such, their books get very easily damp and bendable, so I would rather have their books and all their toys and stuff in one of the warmer rooms in the house. So I basically just explained that's why I hadn't, I had my stuff moved around in my room a little bit disorganized. I was planning on switching out the rooms last night, and I wasn't able to. So I explained all these things to her. She kind of went around and checked all the house. She took photos. The kitchen was clean. Everything was clean. The bathroom could have been cleaned a little bit better where I hadn't used the chemicals to get the grout fully, but it was scrubbed. It was clean. But the thing is she went around taking pictures of everything. She asked a couple questions about my income and things like that. But then they check everything. They check your cupboards, they check your refrigerator. That was quite crazy because I wasn't expecting that. I did have my kitchen was, I just cooked by the way, so it's a little bit messy. My kitchen was in this condition with up dishes done and everything. And then I had my cupboards were full and everything was fine. And then this was all, except there was more stuff, it was all stacked and organized. And all my dishes were up here and everything and organized this stuff. And I mean, I just realized that wasn't her. What I was saying is usually the Christmas tree wouldn't be there, usually this wouldn't be here, and this folds out to relax on, and we have another stool here and then these 2 chairs or whatever. So we have a dining table, and I plan on getting a kids. So anyway, I explained this all to her. And then also she had to check the refrigerator. Well, me,
a couple days ago was grocery shopping. I brought in groceries, and with it being the holidays and me being busy with stuff and the kids also being gone and me being trying to get my rest in when I could, and I was also out of the house honestly a little bit trying to get stuff done, like shopping and paperwork things. Well, anyway, I came back with groceries and I had just kind of set them down, and I went to go do something, and then I realized, oh, I need to put them away. So you know how you just kind of shove your groceries in the refrigerator all abruptly on top of needing to clean it out and take out the old groceries? Well, I had done that, and in the morning when we got back, because there was the water issue, I didn't get to organize that. So I was like, oh, you have to check the refrigerator. And I was like, just go ahead, just take a photo, but I would like to explain it does not always look like that. It wasn't gross and grimy and dirty. It was just like milk literally shoved on the third shelf with like broccoli next to it. And like there was no organization skill to it at all. So I just explained it, like at least there's food in there. There was a tofu that I need to throw away or something. And I said, if you would like to see how I usually organize stuff, like clearly this is pretty clean. Like I always make sure I have stuff organized usually. And they do have food in the house. And then they have like snack food. And then, like I always have fruits and vegetables. I'll take a photo and post it of what the girls' room used to look like. Typically like how I usually have their toys set up every other day and how it's all organized, as well as my bedroom, how it was. Because I did have like an extra hanger at the end with my dresses on it that I just put in that day because I was moving everything and letting it dry. So it looked very cramped, but typically it doesn't look like that. And I was explaining that I was switching the rooms. The girls' room, however, has bed, has their clothing rack thingies. That was fine, mostly for the most part. But I just basically explained that usually it's more up to par than this. Not that there was typically like there was anything very wrong with the apartment. It was more so just it could have looked more presentable. I could have already had the bed sheets on the beds. I could have tried to show more what it typically looks like day to day. Oh my gosh, my face. But yes, so anyway, so that went okay. And then she asked about my income. She asked about me to set her parenting plan, and then she also told me like, don't you want to visit your son? And I was like, yes, of course I do, but if he wants me to try to pay child support, I have to work Monday through Friday, and I've requested for weekends, and he won't reply to my lawyer. He wouldn't talk about it in the center, which she noted that she saw because she was apparently there that day. And then she just kind of had me spend time with the girls and show I usually play with them, like what we do together, what activities we would do. And I was like, well, usually we don't like, I won't sit down while they're playing Barbies or playing Legos or something and hang out with them very much for that, because for their age, play or playing alongside other friends is the most important thing. But I do every day after work when I have time, I will teach them using the books I have for like teaching them ABCs and both languages. They have a learning tablet, they have tracing papers for letters, phonics books. They also usually get like pop-up craft books, or they get something from schools at home, like the winter care package where we made Christmas trees and we did building stuff together. Oh, my skin looks so bad. Anyway, and sometimes we'll color together, or we'll do like, they have a map of the world where they learn the flags. They have those little balloon, oh, why does my face look so weird compared to that? They have those little balloon things that they got for Christmas that they make with me. Mostly crafting and things that involve logic or learning, I do with them. Some of them are little books too for Iana's age, where they like have to use their imagination and draw stuff, or they have to learn their numbers, things like that is what I do with them. We also have like those what am I board games where they have a thing on their head and like you have to guess it and be like, am I food, am I this, am I that, where we have those weight games where they learn how to balance the weight. Those are a lot of the things I do with them. Letter blocks where they connect them and make words. So I just really explained that's what we do together. So she left. I felt like it didn't go horrible. My apartment did smell like bleach when she came because of the window issue, and me literally getting back when the girls got inside the house from coming back from their grandparents and finding that issue out where I had my blinds pulled down and I had to spray like all over the window shield and like a little bit right there at the top, but mostly all over the window shield where like the blinds were against it. And yeah, so I was like, I'm so sorry for the lock smell. It didn't go bad. It was just a very invasive process, which I get why they do that, to show that the kids are being fed, this, that, and the other. Just expect it to be pretty invasive because they literally will open all your cupboards, they'll open your refrigerator, they will go into every single room you have. I'm surprised they didn't open my bathroom cabinets because I had them halfway open for them. Hi everyone, I just want to kind of, update you guys a little bit. Not really big updates. I'm not even quite sure if I had in my last video, but I rewatched it mostly and I'm pretty sure I didn't. So as I explained to you guys, the next court date is on April 30th. I have spoken to my lawyer. They said it doesn't matter if I show up or not. I am going to request to show up that day to my work, but I'm not quite sure yet if I'll get that day off. Usually in Korea, if you've ever gone to a divorce court date, you will see that most couples, lawyers that are ahead of you, if you do end up going, they just send their lawyers and they usually never attend. I don't know if it's like next level pettiness or like just not liking each other or just trusting their lawyers full-heartedly. I don't trust anybody that much to sit there and send them in my place to talk about how I feel on the case and, to fully represent me. No amount of money in the world would make me trust someone that much. So I have always gone to all the court dates because I feel that even with a lawyer, you can't just trust that anyone that you're paying money to is going to have your best benefit or best interest at heart. Anyway, I am just trying to keep a positive mindset on all this, and I'm really hoping that on April 30th that I get good news. If I don't get good news, I'm really hoping that due to the child abuse charge that the judge, until that is fully, because from what I understand, it's guilty at police level, but not at prosecutor's level. Yeah, I need to check if it's been updated about that since and read all the paperwork on it. But if it is not done, I believe I can have the judge postpone the final result until the result comes out for his child abuse charges. So, otherwise, what the judge would potentially grant him custody, meaning if it's not in my favor, and then come to find out he has child abuse charges potentially later, that wouldn't look good at all for, the prosecutor's office. So I'm really just hoping that that they put it off if they're not sure that they want to give custody to me, and then they'll go ahead and schedule another 1 or 2 court dates before making the final choice. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of just hop on here. I know I'm probably repeating a lot of what I said in my last video, but keep in mind that I've not been posting on here as often, and I'm pretty afraid that the algorithm's starting to just not show my videos. So I will be posting more often, even if it's just quick little updates. Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Notice how they were checking her cupboards, checking the kitchen, judging her for having little messy things. It's because the standard is very high. And I believe that they are trying to prove that she is unfit. Notice how she said she felt the court inspector was scrutinizing her space, as if her house being a little untidy is a problem. And I'm pretty sure his house ain't all the way clean. Let's be clear. But because she is a foreign national, there's already a lot of bias and a lot of stereotypes that come along with it. I honestly think, and my theory is that this man was a bum. And I don't think that he actually held the job. I think that he's been dependent on his parents. That's just my belief. Based on the situation and based on the fact that he had to go back to his parents' house. So that leads me to believe that he is very dependent on his parents. I don't think he was a breadwinner. I don't think that he was actually the one paying for everything. I think that his parents were very involved in his decisions. In my honest opinion, this mama's boy of a demon was dependent on his family for his resources. I do not for a second believe that this man has enough money to be able to do the things that he's doing, but his parents probably do. And so you got to be careful about that too. Men with powerful parents will be prioritized, especially in the Korean judicial system. And when you have a mama's boy, and also she probably already thought negative things about Courtney. Let's be honest. 1, she's a foreigner. 2, she has 2 children from a previous marriage. And 3, her son is probably telling her that, oh, she's loud, she's abusive, she's this and she's that. And the 3rd, he's telling all these lies to his family, making it seem as if she's the aggressor and he is the victim, when in actuality is the reverse. And unfortunately, with a lot of mothers who are male identified and treat their sons like little princes, and in a society where men lack accountability, this is what happens. You get these demonic entities that come into your life and want to procreate with you and want to control you and isolate you, so that they can always feel like they have the power. I am positive that he is very satisfied that he is able to destroy Courtney's life, because a parasite such as himself feeds off of that. I'm telling you guys, Korea is not there yet. They're getting there. They are getting there, but they're not there yet when it comes to diversity, when it comes to knowing how to unlearn certain biases and stereotypes about foreigners. They are starting to get there, but unfortunately, they're taking a lot of time. They are still lacking progress when it comes to human rights, when it comes to diversity, when it comes to gender rights, women's rights, when it comes to equality. They are lacking. As a matter of fact, Korea has the worst gender pay gap of all the OECD countries. The current president, Yoon, or soon to be ex-president, y'all know the political situation right now. It's always back and forth, but he's still the president for now. He is seeking to disband the gender ministry. And not only that, but foreigners still face a lot of discrimination in Korea. This video is not to scare you all into not going to Korea. That is not my intention at all. However, you must know what really is going on in order for you to protect yourself. And it's just like with any other country in the world. If you're going to visit somewhere, you would want to know the good and the bad and the ugly. And unfortunately, Korea has done a good job in its soft power in showing the positive sides of Korea, but seldomly showing the negative sides of Korea. And as a foreign woman, you have to be extra vigilant because you are prime prey. You are prime prey, especially in a country that upholds the system of patriarchy and has very strong traditional norms and values. Please make sure that you know your rights, you can protect yourself, and also that you make the best decisions when you're choosing to date a man from another country. On that note, thank you so much for watching this case study. Please show Courtney some love, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, take care of your beautiful selves, and bye!